Good morning and welcome back to Unlocking the Paradigm Portal. My name is Sarah. So, today's episode is a Sunday deep dive, and I'm going to dive into a very cool moment that I have every day. And sometimes it sticks a little harder and sometimes it doesn't. And when I have these moments, I will have the coolest insights that come out of them. And the one that came yesterday ended up being extremely profound and is laying the groundwork for every episode this week. So I have this moment that I call my quietude, and it is my Zen moment in the morning right before I get up. And it's like when I start to wake up, but I'm not fully awake, but I'm not still asleep. And the threads from my dream are merging with that waking reality. And it's like watching puzzle pieces swirl together. And sometimes they just swirl and I just lay there quietly and peacefully. And other times the pieces come together and they make a picture, a phrase, something. And the phrase that came into my head yesterday morning is Pandora's box is liberation. And usually it just makes total sense. That one, I had this full physical feeling of, oh my God, yes. And then as I woke up more, I was like, where the hell did that come from? So rather than just, get up for the day, I dug around, I found my work bag, and I managed to find my journal, and I just scribbled that line down, climbed back into bed and dozed off because I wasn't totally awake yet. And then I got thinking about that and I was like, what the heck is that? But I feel like when something that crystal clear comes through, and I've had this happen my whole life, there's a reason for it. And so when I woke up for the second time, no quietude that time because it wasn't still pitch black, I sat with it and I let it kind of come together. And so then I started thinking, I know Pandora, I know about the box and all of that stuff. And for anyone who doesn't know, Pandora was made by Hephaestus, who was like the craftsman god, basically. I think he was a god. And by Zeus, who was a total asshole, to be given to Prometheus for giving fire to the humans, which if you know that one, Zeus was really pissed about it. And I think, was that the one where his stomach kept getting pecked out? Or was it the one where he had to keep pushing the rock up the hill? I can't remember which one. If anyone remembers, let me know. Actually, I can go look up my mythology books when I'm done here. But he did it. He created this woman who was like perfection, basically as a man trap, and sent her with this sealed box. And she ended up opening the box and unleashing all things awful, grief, plague, rage, all the things onto the world. But then she snapped it shut again. And what was left trapped inside the box was hope. So as always, with a lot of these old stories, women are the cause of all things evil being unleashed upon the world. Eve, sorry, just saying, because, don't be curious. And frankly, I have a feeling a few people clicked off hearing that. If you have an issue with things being questioned, this is definitely not the place for you. So I'm looking into Pandora and I'm like, what the hell is this all about? And the box and everything that escaped and how it was a cautionary tale about curiosity being the issue. And I mean, isn't there even the phrase curiosity killed the cat? Like, if you actually stop and think about all of these things that we hear, that we repeat and don't even think about, it's bullshit. Like, it is complete and utter bullshit. And we're telling people through these phrases and we're drilling it into our head, curiosity is a bad thing. And I can't fathom that because that's like my number one trait in life. Maybe that's why this gets me really fired up. But so I got sitting with that whole thought and I was like, why would curiosity be this catastrophe? And what if the box was not the problem? What if the problem was that it was sealed in the first place? Like sealed, trying to keep away all of the negative things instead of acknowledging that that is a crucial and integral part of life. Like you cannot avoid the difficult feelings because that's part of, like, living is not meant to stay in neutral. It's not meant to stay in shades of gray and black and white. It's meant to be Technicolor. It's the Wizard of Oz when color finally came into it. And as just a funny little side note, when my kids watched that for the first time when they were little, I remember my son turning to me and going, "Mom, when you were little, did you have TV with color?" And I was like, "Yeah, kid, I'm not that old. Thanks, you big jerk." But so life is meant to be the highs and the lows and the up and the down. I mean, not dramatically so, but you have to feel the lows to appreciate the highs. And when you're in the high, you appreciate it even more because you know what the low feels like. And things are meant to be vivid and colorful and experiences and not always happy go lucky shoving things down. And I know a lot of people choose to live like that. And I'm questioning why. I'm wondering if there was a thread that ties through the family that you just don't do that. Like when you were a little kid and had tough feelings, did people try to coddle and placate or tell you to distract and numb and avoid? Which, by the way, think of the messaging of that. It's done from a place of love, I'm sure, because nobody wants to see their kid struggling. However, what that is conveying is big feelings are scary, don't go there. And then you grow up feeling big feelings are scary, don't go there. And then that's what you do with your kids. And then you spend your whole life shoving everything into the box and keeping it sealed. Crazy, right? So the thing with like sealing off the box is that it doesn't mean that that stuff isn't still there. And it doesn't mean that that box is going to like sit up on the shelf and not do anything. It might leak. And no matter what, even if it doesn't leak or the seal cracks or whatever, it's going to shape the room around it and the temperature, like the emotional weather. And it's going to change the way the emotional weather in the family dynamic is operating. And nobody's going to be able to name why because the box got created long before you came around. So then it's just, this is what we do. So that's another question, actually. Do you have anything in your family that it's just a known fact, like this is what we do? And I'll tell you, one in my family is, and this isn't a bad thing, but it definitely ingrained itself in how I viewed myself as a kid. My family's very athletic. My dad was a basketball coach forever. My brother is a coach. My other brother has coached. I've coached. Like we all just, I think my sister, at least one of my sisters has coached, maybe both of them, but we're very athletic. My dad was even the athletic director and like the gym teacher and all of that. So sports are what we do. And it was just known. And I remember growing up knowing that. And even though I enjoyed sports, but what I found was I wanted to play for fun. And because I came from a very athletic family, I felt I had to be this super competitive person. So and it wasn't anything anyone ever said to me, but it was just this is what we do. We're athletes. We play and we play hard and we make sure that we are the best. And it kind of sucked the joy out of it for me. And I definitely, again, nobody said a word, but I felt if I didn't do sports, then what was my worth? By the way, there's some of my unworthy wound that I referenced back to last week. And it shaped a lot of how I viewed myself. And it wasn't just me. I remember in high school, I played soccer. Soccer was my personal jam. And I remember warming up and one of the referees kicked a ball at me and it hit me on my butt. And he goes, "Hey, we're calling captains. I'm sure you're up here. There's always one of you in your family here." And I remember just being like, yeah, you're right, because I'm the youngest. So there was always one of us playing at all times, basically. But to even have a referee who didn't know me personally, but knew my family name and knew of our whole family athletic situation, just assume like, oh, we're calling captains, you must be one of them. And I didn't even think twice about it. But looking back, it's like there was just an assumption that that's what we do. And so that's not like some big toxic pattern, but that's one of those things that it's just, this is who I am. This is what we do in this family. So I'm wondering, yes, it's early on a Sunday morning. What are some things that you just autopilot are like, well, but this is what we do in this family? And is that what you want to do? Or have you done it or thought that or believed that or become that because that's just what we do? And you see this a lot with like family businesses. Like, this is our business. This is what we do. And whether it's spoken or unspoken, there's a tremendous amount of pressure. Or if you have, like, you'll see this in families that have, like, let's say doctors that run through the line. Well, this is just what we do. So there is automatically, you feel this pressure. Again, it may never have been spoken to you, and there may actually be no real pressure, but you feel this pressure that this is what I need to do to be part of the family. Or hell, I saw something in the news about another Duggar kid and all the fiasco there. Like, that's what they do. We have as many children as we can. And guess what? They go on and they start reproducing and reproducing. It's not necessarily what they want, but that's what we do. So that is that sealed box that's like running the family. And until you are the one to stop, and you don't even have to make the changes. I'm not suggesting make any change this morning. I'm saying just ask the question and be curious and try to see, like, is this sealed box of the family patterns, is that running your life? That's the Pandora's box that was coming up for me so early yesterday morning. And you can look at it as like even family, other family things. Like, think of what is something that you have, like, that you just knew your grandparents would not talk about. Think the silent generation. Like, a lot of people, it's their grandparents. For me, it's my parents. There's subjects that did not come up. How many families talked about sex? Probably not that many. So everyone had to find their information somewhere. People didn't know how to talk about it. And I had an experience, and I talked about this last week. My first baby, I lost him when I was 6 months pregnant, and I labored for 18 hours, and I, had to push him out and do all of that. And just as a little side note, for anyone who doesn't know, labor is labor is labor. It doesn't matter the size of the baby. So it was still 18 hours of agony. And agony also throw in the emotional component of knowing I was going home empty-handed. Very traumatic experience. And what I found after that is, culturally, people don't talk about it. How many of you, as soon as I even mentioned this, physically cringed? Now I'm going to ask you to just pause and think about why. That was my experience. That was not yours. Why did you cringe? Why do you have a hard time hearing about it when you didn't have to go through it? Now, if you're someone who went through it and you cringed, I am so sorry, and I feel you. And probably some of that is we are not taught or allowed to feel things like the loss of a pregnancy that was a wanted and chosen pregnancy. We're not supposed to feel it because it makes everybody else uncomfortable. And I saw that afterwards when it's something I physically went through. My now ex-husband, he went through it with me. And everybody else took on the discomfort because of their own discomfort. And I would have people who would literally turn on, like, their eyes would get wide. They would go, and they would turn on their heel and go the other way. So if you've done that, I understand. And I'm going to ask you to please stop and think about why. Because that was your discomfort that you just shoved at somebody who went through hell and back. No judgment here, but just think about it. So these are things that we learn through family lines we don't talk about, or we learn through society we don't talk about, or we learn through culture we don't talk about, or religion we don't talk about. We don't question things, you just go along. And to that, if you have issues with swearing, this is not the episode to be on. Fuck that. Like, question things in a healthy way. There's a big difference between curiosity in your questioning and aggression in your questioning. If you're a trial lawyer, go for the aggressive. But just think about it and ask. Ask yourself. You don't even have to ask your family. That's what breaking generational curses and traumas and patterns is all about. So that is the box. That's Pandora's box. It is unprocessed grief that gets shoved down through the line and turns into anxiety. If you're someone who says, well, anxiety runs in my family, anxiety is unprocessed emotion. So what are you struggling with? And if everything is actually good, but you're still struggling with anxiety and you know that you have a parent that has anxiety, just observe. Don't change anything. I'm not saying break up your entire mental health pattern. Don't. You have it for a reason. But look at your parents. What was weighing on them? What were they struggling with? Where did they get that from? And start tracking it back through the lines. These things keep getting passed down because they go unprocessed. Rage is another one that goes unprocessed. I have so many clients right now that struggle tremendously with aggressive control because they never learned healthy expressions of difficult emotions like anger. They experienced very scary experiences with anger, so they shove it down. But anger is a normal emotion. You have to learn how to express it in a healthy and positive way. Most people don't. So then either they end up having a lot of rage, or they suppress their rage down and it starts to manifest physically. These are all like wounds that have passed through the line that were never tended to. And then it becomes the rule to just don't talk about it, don't look at it directly, don't feel it. And then that rule gets handed down. It's not written and it's not even spoken. It's just absorbed. And think of the way that children absorb everything through their nervous system, through what happens in the room, we know, like, if you are in a bad headspace, people say, oh, the baby's going to pick up on it. Think about that. That doesn't change just because you're not a baby. Think about when you're fine and your partner comes home and they've had a bad day and you suddenly are feeling tense and stressed and snippy, and you say things like, oh, well, I just absorbed their moods. A, you got to learn some boundaries. We'll work on that one. But B, that's literally, if you're picking up on their emotions and having trouble processing it, think about where did that come from? And the kids around you, you don't have to say a word. You can tell them you love them and show up to every freaking game. But if you have unprocessed pain and emotions and challenges, they will pick up on it. They just don't know what the hell it's all about. So then they have to make sense of it. So children that have absorbed everything, nervous systems that are haywire, anxiety that is rampant, depression that is rampant, things like OCD, things like explosive tempers, all of these things, I'm going to challenge you, instead of just saying, well, this is just who I am, which I also think is complete bullshit. We are all people who can grow and change and morph and learn and adapt and tweak. Yes, there are structural, biological, physiological, anatomical things that we have to work with. I don't deny that. Very sciencey over here. But the other things that you're like, well, this is just who I am. Is it? Or was that something that you absorbed that, yeah, you show traits of it and you've just chosen to stay in that? And a very, very minor version of this, which is why this past week was such a big deal, is I always would stay up really late reading when I was little, like with a flashlight under the blankets. And then I would really struggle to wake up in the morning, and it would drive my mother absolutely insane, to the point that she told my father, she's your child, and like, stop dealing with me. And bless his soul, my dad would come up and stand at attention and sing Home on the Range and On Top of Old Smoky, sometimes the Star Spangled Banner, all sorts of things, and sing to get me to wake up. And now I do this to my children, see, passing it down, except I play, what is that? The one with the trumpets that's like, da, 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 that one. I blast that at full steam to wake them up after I've tried to wake them up gently. But anyways, wow, I totally just lost my train of thought. Oh, so my whole life, the running joke was, I'm not a morning person. And so I spent my entire life being like, I'm not a morning person. I'm not a morning person. And then one day I was like, but why? Like, why am I, you're not genetically a morning person or not. And I started questioning it, and I realized I had heard that so much. that, and I'd always just struggled to wake up because I was up late, that I was like, well, that's just who I am, until I questioned it. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, when I go camping, my favorite thing is 5 a.m. when like the mist is on the water and it's quiet, people aren't up yet, and it's just so peaceful. And like here up north in the mountains, you'll hear like the loons calling. It's amazing. And I'm like, I get up without an alarm, without even thinking. So that means I can do it. Why the hell am I not? Because I told myself that I couldn't. So this week was the first week that I've been actively getting up early again and changing that pattern that I started absorbing again, because we didn't choose the patterns. We didn't choose this Pandora's box in our family. We were literally handed it by other people, and handed like a set of instructions that were unspoken, usually always unspoken, about how to carry it. Like, don't open the box, don't look in there, just go along with it. Go along to get along. Isn't that another phrase? Another stupid one. And oh, here's another one that really irritates the crap out of me, especially because I work with couples a lot. The happy wife, happy life. Okay, so much with that one, and I will get into that at a later date. But for the love of God, please stop saying that. Please stop believing that, because that immediately negates the husband or the other partner's rights and roles and importance in that relationship. And I have a huge problem with that. Like, we need to honor and respect both people in a relationship. And men or partners, if you are using that phrase, happy wife, happy life, why are you limiting yourself? Why are you dismissing your own needs? And why are you having it be all about the other person? Where did that come from? Just think about it. Yeah. And oh gosh, there's so much I could go on about that. But so the reasons, then I started thinking, okay, generational patterns, Pandora's box, why do we keep it locked shut? Loyalty, first of all. If you struggle with feeling like you're going to be disloyal, if you actually recognize the family patterns and are the truth teller in the family, that's not uncommon. I struggled with that one for a long time. I felt like I was being the worst child on the planet if I dared to recognize my parents did the best they could with what they had, and it hurt me in these ways. That has had a ripple effect through life, which is what led me to attachment theory, which is what led me to a lot of therapy. And the important thing is to realize all of the things happened to you and for you, and what you choose to do with it in adulthood. If you choose to stay in victimhood or martyrdom or hostility or anger, that's your choice. But you're an adult. You're not a child anymore. So take ownership of that. But that loyalty, it felt like betrayal. I felt like I was going to be struck down or smote. What would the word be for that? I felt like that's what was going to happen if I dared to say it. And I didn't realize that that's how I was feeling until the day that I realized it. And I realized that by sticking with loyalty, I was not being loyal to myself and my own feelings. And it feels like we are, by saying things openly and honestly, we're judging. And yeah, maybe some people are, but the way I look at it is seeing people clearly and 100% for the full 360 of who they are, for all of their complexities. It's the most honorable way to love someone, because you're seeing them for all their facets, not just the appropriate or palatable ones, and not just the ones that you want to see that you're good with. You're recognizing all of them. And what you will find is that the gratitude and compassion and appreciation for that person will expand exponentially. The love actually becomes deeper and greater. And there's an honesty, there's a genuine connection with it. So the other reason that I was thinking about of why we would not just open up that Pandora's box of generational patterns is because exactly what I was just saying, like, you have to see people differently. And because it's having to see that a parent or a loved one or a spouse or a sibling who was maybe like the warmest person in the room and the friendliest also could be a little bit of an asshole or a lot of bit of an asshole. But because of that loyalty, you chose to see them one way or the other, and you don't want to criticize. But here's the thing, like, nobody is simple, and everyone is doing the best they can. And there is grief to realize people don't belong on pedestals and they are not superheroes. And I know I reference like my superhero power. We all have different little things that make us that are superpowers, but nobody actually is a superhero. And there is grief in having to realize everyone is human, but there also is relief that comes with it, because if everybody's human, so are you. And you're allowed to fuck up and struggle and have a hard time. And there's also grief about realizing your parents are amazing and not necessarily equipped with the tools that you needed to parent you the way that you needed. Especially if you come from a big family. That's a lot of kids for them to know how to parent. And frankly, it's their first time figuring it out too. Like, we're all just trying to figure things out. And there's a feeling of loss when that story really becomes clear, because sometimes the best wasn't the best. And seeing that doesn't make you a bad person. It truly makes you an honest one, and someone who's showing up clear-eyed and with full authenticity and integrity. And I'm telling you, the people that you love, your family, everybody, it doesn't make you love them less. It makes you love them more when you can see them in their full glory. So another reason that you might struggle with the box and opening it is that you don't want to be the difficult one. Because every family system, it has a role for the person who asks too many questions. They might be considered too sensitive or too intense or too much. And they definitely are the one who sees things and maybe insists on bringing them up. I don't know. That's what I do. And the role is not comfortable, and it's not easy, and it can be very, very lonely. I've definitely always felt like the black sheep, and it's tough. And it can cost relationships, especially if you have people in the family that are the exact opposite, that are like the ones who do all the things, quote unquote, right. Then it definitely highlights those who don't want to do it the quote unquote right way. And it kind of can make you the person that like everyone in the family agrees is the problem, because the problem is the wound, but it's easier for people to look at it as the problem is the person who puts the name on the wound. So there's so many reasons to not open that box, but it's not going to go away until somebody looks at it. And it's going to keep moving through you, through your actions, through your feelings, through relationships, through conflict, intimacy or lack thereof, or loss, or patterns that you may keep saying, I'm not going to keep doing that. You might see the pattern. You might have even put a name to it, but then you find yourself almost compulsively doing it again. That's how deeply ingrained it is. And that Pandora's box in your family being sealed, it doesn't protect you from what's inside of it. It just means that what's inside of it is what is actually running the show, whether you realize it or not. And it's running the show without your knowledge or consent unless you take a second and actually look at it. Excuse me, I need some coffee. So I want to get into a little bit about what it actually looks like when the box is running things. So it can be the same fight in every relationship. And I don't just mean, when I say relationships, I don't just mean like romantic ones, but your actual conflict style is going to probably be the same across the board. If you're someone who, when you feel too emotional or emotionally challenged or threatened, if you're someone who gets kind of aggressive in your way of speaking, does it cross into your partnership? Does it cross into your kids? Are you kind of known to be a bit of a bulldozer or like a bull in a china shop? Well, there's a reason for it. Are you the person who kind of like backs off and lets everything go and just turns into, like, I guess the description would be like the doormat? That's part of it too. And then if you look back, where'd you learn that? Because you didn't just automatically do it. You learned it from somewhere. And the pattern, it just keeps showing up. And because something in you recognizes that it's familiar and your nervous system knows how to navigate it. So it keeps going back to that pattern. So that's why it's difficult. You can see the pattern, but to actually change out of it, it's going to require intention and actively putting effort toward it, and navigating that can be difficult, which is another reason, by the way, that people try not to do it. And it can also, that box running the show can be the thing that you maybe swore that you would never do. Like, think of something when you were a kid that you were like, that you didn't like that one of your parents did, and you're like, I am never going to do that. And you literally put it to words and you insisted it would be different. And then you maybe have heard like that same situation coming out of your mouth. Like, oh God, I've had this so many times where I'll say something and I'll be like, oh my God, that was so my mom. Yeah, it's autopilot programming. It's part of that box. It doesn't always mean it's a bad thing, but it's just ways to identify that replaying of the things that are shoved down in the box. Or if you were raised with a parent who used the silent treatment, whether as a weapon, which, by the way, silent treatment is literally a weapon. It's not okay. It's whether you're doing it intentionally or not. It's like an emotional weapon that's being used against somebody. Super not cool. Try not to do it. If you're not sure what you're feeling, just say, I'm not sure what I'm feeling. I need to sit with that. Instead of just, I'm going to go silent and punish you. It's a weapon and it's punishment. Please, please, please stop doing that. But so think about that. If you had a parent who would use the silent treatment, whether it was because they were emotionally overwhelmed and didn't know how to deal with it, or that was their way of trying to regain control in the situation, do you now inadvertently or intentionally use silence? You just shut down and walk away? Yeah. You probably understood something terrible and clarifying about all of this, and like the silent part, and you inherited it even though you didn't like it, and then you are on autopilot replaying that same program. And I always say this, it's not because you're weak, that it's just, that's how it works. These patterns keep playing, and you can't unlearn what you were never shown was an option. You see it, it's modeled to you, you absorb it, you replay it until you wake up and open Pandora's box. Because once you crack open that box, you know, in the myth, they talk about it like you open it up and destruction comes seeping out, which is that fear-based thought. So that's where all of a sudden it clicked into place. Pandora's box is liberation. Open the box to become liberated. Open the box to let all of that crap out, to rip the blinders off your eyes. I was just talking to somebody who's having cataract surgery, and I said, that needs to come out, because then I really feel like then you'll have clear eyes and you can see things. I mean, literally, but also it's metaphor. But just take a peek. You can do it with your fingers covering your eyes and peeking through, like, or your hands covering your eyes and peeking through your fingers, like in a horror movie, or looking at a horror movie. But just look at it and just notice. You don't have to do anything yet. You can't do anything until you can see it. So open that box and see what comes out. It's not going to be flying demons. I'll tell you that. It's not going to be like Ghostbusters. It's not going to be hell that's unleashed upon the world. It might be a little bit of discomfort. Actually, it probably will be. But you're going to be able to see things in a way that you didn't see them before. It's not demolition. It's a question. It's asking the questions of why. And be like that 3-year-old that drove everybody nuts, saying, but why, but why, but why? I did that, my kids did that, and now I'm seeing it as utterly fascinating, because these kids come into the world knowing to question things, and then we squash it out of them. So the part of the myth that is accurate is truly everything is going to start coming out. And that can be kind of a lot. Some of them might come out with some force. Some of them might come out a little bit chaotic. The grief, you might have anger. You might have some anger that's been waiting for a very long time to have permission to come out. And that's all real. But the release of all of that stuff, it's not the disaster. The hardest part, honestly, is allowing yourself to ask why. And asking why and recognizing that opening that box, it doesn't create damage. It just reveals the damage that's already been there the whole time, and that you can finally do something with it. So I will say, if you are someone who struggles with being proactive about things, like let's say going to the doctor, and a lot of people do this, they're afraid of what they might find, so they avoid it. And unfortunately, what that often leads to is then you end up with issues that are way more significant because you ignored it or you avoided it. And I get that. So this might feel daunting for you. But I'm going to remind you that at the bottom of that box, what was there? Hope. It's like a wound. You have to debride the wound. You have to clear out the infection. You have to clear out all of the crap that's layered on top so that healing can begin. And hope is the one thing that is at the bottom that survives everything. And it cannot be destroyed no matter what gets released. And in this particular time frame where there's so much unrest and upheaval and chaos, don't we all need a little bit of hope right now? So hell, if Pandora's box has already been opened, why not just open your own family one? And I've honestly sat with enough people who have opened the box and come out the other side that I know it's true. It's not easy, but it's true. Because what you will find is once you open that box and you let all of that stuff out and you look at it clearly, what is at the bottom is you. It's hope, and that hope is in the form of you. It's the real you, the unfiltered you, the one that is raw and in a natural state without all of this crap on top of it. The one that existed before that wound got burned into you. And before any rules about how to live and how to look at yourself got written, before that box got sealed and then handed down and then handed down again. That version of you has been in there intact the whole time, just waiting for you to explore it. So if you are listening to this still, which thank you, this has been a long one. If you're carrying a box right now, and we all are, you can try to pretend that you're not, but we are. I'm saying don't blow the lid off of it today, but just get curious. Think of like Schrodinger's box and that contemplation of, is the cat dead? Is the cat alive? Like, what could be in the box? And just start asking that question. You don't have to like unleash it. Just have the conversation that you maybe have been avoiding, or in your own mind to yourself, maybe walk up to a family story that you have, that you've held on to, and like a 3-year-old, just ask why, and look it square on and feel, does it feel in your body that it's your truth? And truth is going to feel like an exhale. And anything that is less than that will feel either the same as you always have felt or tightening. And, look at the story and then look at what you've built around that story and just see, is there any way to start dismantling it? Just to notice. You don't have to do anything. Notice where that pattern just keeps popping up for you. And notice the things that you reach for when any of those uncomfortable feelings come around. And especially the things that you really don't want to look at, that you find yourself binging video games, scrolling on your phone, keeping yourself busy, getting physically uncomfortable, and sometimes literally running away from. Why? What is it about it that has you running away? I mean, I know people that I've literally, when an uncomfortable topic comes up or conflict comes up, it is like the roadrunner is suddenly there and pew, they're gone. Like, I had a friend that would literally turn and bolt. And I was like, wow, that is like runner to the nth degree. Holy cow. So just ask yourself why. Where did that come from? Because the story itself is part of what was handed down. It's not just the wound and everything. It's that actual stoyalty. I just merged story and loyalty. The loyalty that is keeping us silent. It's not protecting anybody. It's not protecting you. It's not protecting your kids. And it's not betrayal. It's the bravest thing that you can do for the people that you love. So this whole week, this is the topic that I'm going to be getting into, all of the family patterns, taking a look at all of it, all of the reasons that we don't dive into it. And I'll be back tomorrow morning with more on that. So do all the things, the like, the share, the subscribe, the hyping, whatever. Again, I don't care. Just come back for more. And remember that you're not alone in carrying this, not even a little bit. But the box is now open now that you're aware of it. So leave a comment about any of the patterns that you've noticed. I would love to hear about it, and I will be back tomorrow.